Welcome to Pennsylvania in Focus. I'm Anthony Hinnon, Pennsylvania reporter for the Center Square. Joining me today is the Center Square's Pennsylvania editor, Kristen Smith. Kristen, Lifeline Scholarships and school choice have been a very divisive issue right now as Pennsylvania tries to push through a budget. But we're also seeing some activists step in, including a well-known rapper. What can you tell us here?
So Meek Mill, who is a native of Philadelphia, and some listeners may recognize the name simply because he was pardoned by our former governor, he has come out within the last 24 hours as one of the lead signatories on a letter sent to Governor Shapiro and some of his cabinet members and the entire legislature about Lifeline Scholarships, which are a separate pot of money that the General Assembly wants to establish, and that money would give scholarships to kids living in the attendance zones for the lowest performing schools across the state. And then they could use that money to go to a private school and pay the tuition or to get tutoring. It's really picked up steam in the last couple weeks since the Senate introduced it. And then Shapiro gave it a real boost when he went on Fox News of all places a couple days ago and said that he supported the idea. So now within the last 24 hours, the pressure is on from this very diverse coalition, including Meek Mill. You've got music producers on it, former presidential cabinet members like Betsy DeVos, former congressional members, all kinds of educational advocacy organizations, really pushing the sobering statistics behind what's going on in these low performing schools.
Does it seem like we're nearing any sort of compromise or any sort of workaround here? Because it seems like the Senate says yes, Governor Shapiro says yes, but the sticking point seems to be House Democrats who not exactly inclined to support this.
Historically, Democrats are not fans of school choice, although this tide has been slowly turning over the last couple of years. And I think you could argue that the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing learning loss really sped up this transition. As you mentioned, both Shapiro and Republicans in both chambers really support this idea. The other supporters on the outside of the legislature who have come out in support of this come from all different sides of the political spectrum. So it's really becoming a bipartisan issue. For Democrats, I think it's getting tricky because this is certainly a problem for Philadelphia, other urban school districts, and very rural school districts as well, that students aren't reading at grade level. In fact, there's something like 6 schools in this group that have 0% of students reading at grade level and 0% of students performing math at a grade level. So that's how bad some of these learning environments are for these students. So because of that, the desire to do something is growing stronger. And in fact, one of the Democrats in the Senate, who's long been a supporter of school choice, although not quite in the way that Lifeline scholarships are handled, is Senator Tony Williams, who represents a district in Philadelphia. He had some choice words at a recent committee hearing to confirm the nomination of the Senate or of the education secretary, in which he was pushing back against his Democratic colleagues, saying that, again, reiterating what other school choice supporters have said. More money is not fixing it. We've had quote unquote historic investments in public education over the last 8 years, including big portions of our federal pandemic funds. And instead of test scores and everything going up, all we see is everything going down. We see that learning divide getting bigger, and the children most getting left behind are in schools in his district. So I think that the pressure is really turning up. And given that House Democrats have their own legislative priorities that they want, particularly child tax care credit, other expensive programs that Republicans would be reticent to support given some of the economic uncertainty out there. I think, and, word on the street is, let's say, not only has this Lifeline Scholarship proposal overshadowed what are normally very frenzied budget negotiations this close to the June 30th deadline, but it seems like it's going to be a major bargaining chip. So I think all eyes need to be on this budget proposal because we're going to see some really big, I think potentially we're going to see some really big movement, not only on Lifeline scholarships, but other programs that would directly affect taxpayers in a way that I don't think that they've been used to over the last couple of years.
Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Kristen Smith, this is Anthony Hinnon. Please subscribe and thanks for listening.